You seen it on The Simpsons?
What's up, YouTube? I want to remind you guys, smash that like button, give me a thumbs up, be sure to share it, and let's fight that algorithm. Now, on to the video.
Wo liegt Kuba? Wo liegt Mexiko? Wo liegt Kuba? Wo liegt Mexiko? Amore. Écoutez, répétez.
I may just let this play in the background. Welcome. This is Jay's Analysis. I'm feeling very max headroom today. Max headroom today. Because I'm reading an amazing book, The Pentagon's Brain, and this was sent to me by one of the beloved Jay's Analysis listeners about a year ago. I can't turn this down to just right. There we go. But The Pentagon's Brain, an amazing revelatory book. And even though it doesn't explicitly count in the Globalist Books Series, hush up, Russians. Hush your mouth, Russians, in the background. It does qualify in the Globalist Books Series. And it qualifies because it is a book about the rise and history of DARPA. So we're going to be talking about tech. We're going to be talking about AI. We're going to be talking about the history of the RAND Corporation. This book was up for a Pulitzer for a while. It was a finalist, and because it's mainstream is why we're doing it. And this is Annie Jacobsen's book, Pentagon's Brain, The Uncensored History of DARPA, America's Top Secret Military Research Agency. What is DARPA? Well, it's where we got the internet, it's where we got the Cold War, it's where we got the RAND Corporation, it's where we got the CIA, it's where we got MKUltra. They're all part of the same system. That's the big revelation here. I kind of like this dark aesthetic we got going here with the War Games camera in the background, or screens in the background. I kind of dig this. It needs some kind of background synthy stuff though, and I hope this isn't copyrighted. Ginger sensations. We're going to talk about AI today. So, what I thought would be fun to do is not just me talk about this big, gigantic book that I've been devouring. Who else does this for you? Who else devours these giant books and those book reports? Book reports for you. Maybe somebody does. Who's doing your homework for you? The Jay's Analysis nerds do your homework for you. You copy off us, and you turn your test in to Mark Harmon in Summer School. I just watched Summer School, so that's on my mind. And by the way, Summer School is the same plot as Dangerous Minds. Did you notice that? Did you know? Why are we so blind to see that the something's ones we something been spending all our lives living in the gangster's paradise? Yes, Dangerous Minds is the same plot as Summer School, but with a bunch of brothers and Hispanic gangsters. Cholos. Yes, thank you. Dangerous Minds has Cholos and the brothers. And then Summer School is a bunch of 80s goofballs. So back before everything was gangsterized, which, by the way, is all out of the prison economy and the prison industrial complex. So what you start to see is that they're kind of turning the country into the model of the private prison industrial complex. And that's by design, because guess what? Guess what comes up in this book? And again, I had not read this until recently, but all of my suspicions are confirmed. Everything that I've been telling you was right for so many years. What did we just see with CBS is doing this presentation of Jack Parsons and Crowley in a series, CBS, called Strange Angel. That right there is a whole vindication of the entire thesis of my book, Esoteric Hollywood, which you can get signed copies of Jay's Analysis. And it proves the thesis of Esoteric Hollywood, doesn't it? It also proves my specific thesis about the Alien series, because the executive producer of the Parsons-Crowley show, Strange Angel, is none other than Ridley Scott. So that proves, I would say, it suggests that the Alien series was consciously Crowleyan. 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 To do some experimental stuff here. Somebody said that my joke Boomer song, Boomer Tunes, they said it was experimental almost. So I may just break into song in the middle of these rants to entertain you. Now, we're going to analyze the movie War Games as well as this book, because I've been wanting to do War Games for so long, where Ferris Bueller hacks the Pentagon. Ferris Bueller hacks the Pentagon. And I knew that it would happen at the right time. And the right time was when I started delving into this. I got almost halfway. And so since this is like 500 or 600 pages, we're probably going to break this up into 2 different analyses. But what better time to do the Pentagon's brain than when I just watched War Games again. And Ali Sheedy, boy does she look rough nowadays. She has like pill head mouth, if you've seen Ali Sheedy recently. Yes, I will analyze toys. What's up with all the Jay's Analysis nerds? Like 20 people saying, do Robin Williams toys. I will do that. That is a great one. There's just so many to do, and I forget. Consciously Crowleyan. Not me, by the way. I'm not consciously Crowleyan. I'm saying that Hollywood is, and the Alien series was. So, before we get to the meat of the book, we're going to talk about the movie. And the thesis is going to be that, as you know, fans of Jay's Analysis, you know that the thesis here, generally, is that the movies are basically true. Right? In a rough sense, the movies are basically true. War Games is roughly true. Obviously, there's a bunch of ridiculous stuff in War Games. Global thermonuclear war is not really true. I don't buy that the Cold War we were on the brink of, nukes, and if JFK could have got off the top of Marilyn Monroe, if JFK hadn't got off the top of Marilyn Monroe at the right time, we'd all be nuked. Because he was humping Marilyn Monroe. The president was humping Marilyn Monroe. But you're going to learn some interesting facts about JFK in this book, because he signed off on some projects. Thank you, Perrine, in support of the Globalist Books Series. Perrine Lance. The Holy Lance. I get so distracted when I try to do these. There's so many things to talk about. But war games is basically true. And we're going to analyze how and to what degree. So, the movie starts off, if you recall, with this secret underground base that is one of the ICBM locales, right? Intercontinental Ballistic Missile locales. And there's a young Michael Madsen, if you don't recall. But yes, one of the two soldiers that mans one of the ICBM nuke sites with the keys is Michael Madsen, a young Michael Madsen before Kill Bill. Long before Kill Bill. And this house is a decoy. It's on top of an underground facility where the ICBMs are. And we learn that this is a war game, hence war games. And the threat suddenly goes nuclear. We're DEFCON, whatever. We're nukes. We're nuclear, dude. And it's a psychological warfare drill, we later learn, to see if these guys will turn to the nuke key. Right now, that's interesting because this is real. The military has done these kinds of things many times. I suspect that missile launches that were gonna hit the Keys, right, Florida Keys, and then come on, I think that was probably a drill of the same sort. But in the situation here, we have NORAD, all right, which Annie Jacobsen is going to go into the history of NORAD in her book. So we're going to get a good dose of underground bases, which there's not really been a mainstream publication about the truth of the underground bases that I'm aware of, except, it's in James Bamford's Puzzle Palace early on. He'll talk about the underground bases and to what degree they're real. He'll talk about Crystal City, which I think is in D.C. It's an entire city underground. But there's a lot of these, and they were all constructed during the Cold War, continuity of government facilities, and this is all true. They're all real. There are countless underground bases everywhere. It's not a conspiracy theory. It is, in many ways, connected to these doomsday plans and doomsday scenarios. Now, a lot of that is psychological warfare, which we're going to see in the book. We'll get to that because she sources, the book very well. So far, I haven't seen anything. Again, because it's mainstream, it's not going to tell you everything, obviously. But as you know, in the Globalist Book Series, we stick with mainstream books to demonstrate that everything that we think is conspiracy is actually real. I'm saying not everything. You know what I mean? Everything in my audience's sense. Like we are, I think, very tapped into approaching these things with a healthy dose of skepticism, ferreting out true conspiracies from false conspiracies. And so talking about DARPA, talking about AI, talking about the technocracy, that's something that obviously we've covered a lot in Jay's analysis because it's in so many movies and it's very real. And that's what Annie Jacobsen is going to show us. And so her book is basically the reality behind war games. That's what we're going to be talking about here. So back to the movie. So what they learn in this drill is that 22% of the soldiers will not follow the order to nuke everybody. So a kind of Milgram experiment on a mass nuclear scale with Michael Madsen. He won't do it. I guess he didn't get his orders from Bill to kill Bill. So he didn't do it. But the guys at the Pentagon basically learned that most soldiers are not willing to engage in the use of large-scale weapons of mass destruction, killing. Now, this is interesting because there were studies about how many soldiers a long time ago were willing to shoot other men. And actually, it was a very low percentage, a lot lower than you would think. A lot of soldiers in hand-to-hand combat out on the front lines tend to run away. They tend to not be willing to fire on fellow men. And so this is why the Pentagon developed video games, and quite literally. So there's, again, here with video games, I'm not oversimplifying it. I realize there's a close connection between the public and the private sector. There's the partnership that's always been there. And we see this very clearly with the Pentagon's relationship to the development of video games. And that's why RAND Corporation, military industrial complex, have always worked hand in hand with giant tech corporations. Lockheed, Boeing, that's Raytheon. These groups essentially do the same stuff still. And Jacobsen's actually going to show this. We're going to see, just like we saw in the Miles Copeland analysis. Remember? I can't believe that video didn't get 1 million views. There's so much in that analysis that I did of Miles Copeland's CIA exploits. He tells you so much, and nobody wants to listen to the real stuff. I don't know. What do people want to listen to? BS? I mean, again, who else is reading the entire memoirs of CIA operatives, Game of Nations? And he tells you about them developing all this computer stuff back in the 60s. Obviously, internet was developed in the 60s. We all know that. We're going to get into that But game theory, as Miles Copeland talked about, is crucial here. And that's why video games are essentially just another manifestation of game theory, right? Nash, Beautiful Life, Russell Crowe, game theory, right? This is what Rand was studying because it's about winning. And guess what? Remember what we saw? Miles Copeland says, yes, actually, the report from Iron Mountain is true. Now, the actual, quote, report from Iron Mountain is a satire book about a real report of the real report from Iron Mountain. So they'll take real reports from Iron Mountain, put it into fiction, and it satirizes it. Sounds like the whole thesis of Jay's analysis in Esoteric Hollywood, doesn't it? Of course it does. War games. They'll take a real DARPA tech control grid, a real plan, and they'll put it into fiction, and they'll satirize it. War games. Now, I'm not telling you that we're going to be nuked by Russians or any of this nonsense. No. In fact, even Annie Jacobsen's book's going to hint that a lot of the Cold War doesn't really seem to make a lot of sense. There's a lot of things that just don't match up. And, you know, if you heard the recent interview that I did with Mark Hackard on Victor Rothschild as a Soviet agent, then that begins to explain the playing both sides, right? The duality, the dialectics of the Cold War as a managed conflict at the meta level. Right? That's not to say that there weren't guys on the ground, guys in the operations and the black ops and all this that were truly, sincerely fighting the commies. Of course there were. And there were truly Viet Cong getting sprayed with chemtrails. What? Yes, Viet Cong getting sprayed with chemtrails. I don't know if Annie Jacobsen is aware of it, but her book actually defends and proves chemtrails. Thought that was a crazy conspiracy theory. Well, here's a mainstream book talking about it. Oh, they just... Well, I'm going to save that. I'm not going to spoil that yet. So, hey, great comment there. Umbrella Corporation. Yes. In fact, I just gave my talk at AV9, Alternative U9 in the UK. That's why I went to the UK. It was a lot of fun. If you guys have followed the streams, you know that. Now, Ian Crane, who puts on AV9, he owns the talks, the presentations, and he sells them, of course, on DVD. So if you want my presentation, you can buy that DVD from Ian Crane at his website for the next year or so. And then after a year, Ian Crane puts the full talk on his YouTube channel. So there's a lot of good talks, by the way, on his channel, because I actually watched some of the older AV presenters, because it was some of the same people that were there this year. Really, really good stuff, though, like really in-depth, especially about AI in transhumanism. And my talk was actually on Hollywood transhumanism. And war games made up a part of that. And thank you there, commenter, that you mentioned. I've got my shades on. I wear my sunglasses at night. Renovated to dust. Yes, the Umbrella Corporation is real. What is the Umbrella Corporation? It is DARPA, CIA, Pentagon, RAND, Military Industrial Complex, because they all are the same people. Okay? Don't think of these things as like different entities. They really all serve the same functions. And I am, yes, back in the saddle. Back in the AI saddle, like that cartoon. Remember that cartoon? Silver something. There was an 80s cartoon with AI robot cowboys in space. Very, very bizarre. You may remember that. Anyway. But I get so way off track here. I love this stream of consciousness style, though. That's my style, bro. Is to just stream, dude. We're live streaming my live stream of consciousness. And but what I was getting at was that it actually is true that the video game first-person shooters were actually designed to help people develop more of a trigger finger, a more ready willingness to shoot fellow men. And Brave Star, thank you, Sean, you got it. Brave Star, I remember watching that before, dreading going to school. At the time, my dad was in boot camp, and we lived in Chicago, and it was freaking cold as heck. And I hated it in Chicago, and I would have to wake up in the morning at like 5 a.m., and I get to watch Brave Star in the morning. And that dumbass clown, I don't know, my mind's not working tonight, that clown that everybody watched for Bozo and Brave Star would come on. Brave Star I thought was cool. Bozo, I don't know, something freaking weird about Bozo. Pentagon video games segues to computers very well, because this show, this movie, encapsulates so many different ideas, and even mass depopulation and eugenics. Believe it or not, this actually comes up because the background scientist who develops the AI, he eventually adopts this genocidal, Kessler, Bertrand Russell, H.G. Wells, Royal Society, Malthusian attitude. And that's mentioned in the movie. It's kind of blowing me away that all of this is in this movie. But we'll get that in a minute. But I just wanted to make the point, though, that this movie even shows the intimate connection between the Pentagon, DARPA, and video games. This is in war games. Now, I didn't figure this out until very recently. There's some old videos actually on YouTube that are pretty good. I've got saved like way back in my liked videos about Pentagon video game connections. They're like 10-minute videos. You could probably find them. So I didn't learn about that until like 3 or 4 years ago. And here it is. Then you go back and you watch war games and you realize that's the whole point of this freaking movie, is that Ferris Bueller can hack into the Pentagon because he is so good at computer games. And we will eventually take on another movie from the 80s that was in the same vein, that has the same idea. Starfighter. He does so good on video games that the shadow space government comes and recruits him to fly the video game drone type systems and to kill the bad guys. Well, what does that sound like? Preparation for drone warfare. And guess what? Drone warfare comes out of Vietnam and the Phoenix program and the Kim programs of Vietnam. All of the conspiracies that I have talked about are vindicated in these books and in this movie. And we will be, by the way, talking about a lot of this in Esoteric Hollywood 2. So there will be a significant section of that book towards the end of the book, Hollywood Transhumanism. we will be delving into all this. So Matthew Broderick, interestingly, is not just Ferris Bueller. He is also, as I think of it, I can't recall another film where we have the archetype, the new archetype, the creation of this new archetype here in 1983 of the teen hacker, right? Remember when we did Hackers, that ridiculous movie with Angelina Jolie and Matthew Lillard and Prodigy playing throughout the entire movie? If you haven't listened to that analysis, it's pretty fun. Go listen to that. It's the one I did with Black Panther and Red Sparrow. Cold War stuff again. Red Sparrow, Hackers. Well, War Games, Cold War stuff again. And Matthew Broderick is the archetype of the teen hacker. Like, he's in his room and he's dialing in with like a rotary dial modem to the Pentagon, which is ridiculous. But by the way, who knew about modems in the 80s? Very few people, right? What is the old internet? The old internet hookup sound. Remember this? Flashback. Hackers. War Games. Whoa, dude. Man, you listen to that shit now and it's like, that is kind of eerie, dude. It's like, it sounds like aliens, like, you know, AI aliens talking to one another or something. That's you could invent some conspiracy about that. It would be the next big conspiracy straight out of, you know, COINTELPRO or whoever designs Flat Earth and all that bullshit. Like, the old original dial-up sounds are alien AI communicating. Call George Norrie. Where is George? Get me on Coast to Coast right now, because I've invented the hottest frickin' conspiracy theory. Yes, dubstep. By the way, you said dubstep there, Truth Seeker. Dubstep is the language of the AI aliens. Bam! That's how you create fake Pentagon, Cass Sunstein, cognitive infiltration conspiracy theories. Right, they should hire me. I could come up with better. I'm joking, but I could definitely come up with something better than that Coney 2012 campaign. Remember that? That was hilarious. So, Matthew Broderick is the archetype of the hacker. And can anybody in the chat, by the way, correct me? Here's challenge. Chat challenge. Dun, dun, dun. I have a little segment here. Chat challenge. Can you think of an earlier archetype in movies of a teen hacker? The computer wore tennis shoes. I remember that. Does that have a teen hacker in it? 1969. Oh yeah, that's that one with Kurt Russell, where it's like a old Disney Kurt Russell movie. Is he a hacker? Dexter Riley, Kurt Russell, or should I say Jack Burton. You find yourself on a dark and stormy night, your back's against the wall. Some guy's got you against the wall. He says, hey, Jack, have you paid your dues? Tell him, yeah, I paid my dues. Check's in the mail. That's my Jack Burton for you. Kurt Russell cannot afford to buy a computer. The students persuade him to. They use a gambling ring for their operations. Is he a hacker, though? We need to know if he's a hacker. He wins a prize. Oh, okay. You might have me on the computer who wore tennis shoes, if you can show that he's a hacker. Stupid question. Move on. It's not a stupid question. We're having fun because it's actually relevant to predictive programming, because if you listen to the hacker analysis, the idea of the teen hacker was prepping you for the internet. It was prepping that younger generation who is going to live into the stage in which the internet would become, everywhere. We would see total saturation of the net. This is what ARPA and DARPA planned. So don't tell me that it's a stupid question. It's not. Weird Science is after. It's 85 or 6, so that doesn't count. It's after. So it does matter when a movie puts in the first archetypal type character like this. And so if we don't count Kurt Russell, then I think War Games counts. And War Games was a mediocre success. I think it was a $12 million budget. I don't think it was a flop. I haven't been able to figure out what it actually made at the box office. But anyway, they knew what they were doing. And what I'm trying to explain to you is that if you can actually go watch old episodes of Airwolf. When I was a kid, I remember watching Airwolf. There's Airwolf clips where he talks about the internet and hooking up to the internet. Now, Airwolf was quite obviously some kind of, Pentagon consulted show, Black Hawks and all that. There's other shows where, you have Kit, right? Knight Rider. Kit is basically an AI car. There's probably Knight Rider episodes about the internet. Nothing surprises me anymore. That people found NSA being exposed in Rockford Files. NSA in Rockford Files. That is insane. I think it was Chris and John put that on Hoaxbusters back in the day. But you can probably find that video on YouTube. Look up Rockford Files and the NSA. Now, again, there's no way this is coincidence. This is just insane. So whoever said stupid question, get out of here. You're a stupid question. Your face is a stupid question. The more sophisticated software, which is interesting, there's this line that Ferris Bueller has. He says the more sophisticated software is the software that's able to present itself as helping you more. How can I help you? And it was kind of an innocuous line, but as I thought about it, yes, that actually makes perfect sense, because all of this AI that we're going to be sold, that we're going to be conditioned into, which is what we're already seeing with Google Voice and Alexa and all this crap in your house, and eventually it's going to be a little rolling around Alexa that comes to different rooms and brings you your beers or whatever, all of which were in 80s movies as well. Go watch Space Camp, which is terrible, but there's a great line about Kate Capshaw's boosters. That's one of the worst stupid lines that I remember from Space Camp. But you see a young Joaquin Phoenix in Space Camp, and guess what the titles credit his name as? Leaf. He's titled in the credits as Leaf Phoenix. So I guess he changed his name to Joaquin. I don't know. But in Space Camp, Joaquin is a young, annoying, chunky kid called Leaf Phoenix. But we're told in War Games that the more sophisticated AI is the one that's able to service you better. And that's what we're going to start getting with these AI programs that are rolled out. In my talk that I did at AV9, I did some research on this and actually found some of the more recent bots that they're rolling out, which are quite literally R2-D2 style things. It's like Alexa, but R2-D2, and he, follows you around the house. It's like Roomba mixed with R2-D2 mixed with Alexa. And he does all kinds of stuff. And by the way, he also spies on you and keeps up with everything. And it's going to be tied into insurance, and he's going to watch you, and he's going to watch what you do and how much you eat and how much energy, how many times you flush when you go TT, and he's going to regulate you, and he's going to tattletale on you. You're going to have your own little living R2-D2 spy. And by the way, Jacques Attali said that too. He says you will willingly accept all this for convenience, and then it will be turned on you to imprison you. That's what Jacques Attali says in the book. Gamification is a big aspect of this movie. I talked about that in my AV9 talk. If you're not familiar with gamification, look it up. Similar to the idea that
Max Kaiser has been talking about gamification. Gamification.
Gamification is the virtual gulag, right? The rise of the virtual to replace the real. And this is the idea of, in the future, since there will be the complete saturation of the Internet of Things, when you brush your teeth, your RFID toothbrush will register how many points you get for brushing your teeth that day on your insurance, analysis or whatever. And you'll get 3 points because you brush your teeth and you get health points, and then you have your Fitbit chip or whatever that follows you. Oh, you did more walking and exercise, so you get 5 points for that. And so everything's going to be registered and regulated by the AI, tied into your insurance and your the medical industrial complex. Can you believe that is the world that we're entering? And that's what they all talk about. It's in this book. It's in Jacques Attali's book, all the way back to H.G. Wells, Bertrand Russell. Shape of Things to Come. This was a big part of my lecture at AV9. Shape of Things to Come. It tells it all.